The population of Native American elders is rapidly growing in the U.S. As the numbers increase, so does the need for awareness. Native American aging researcher Twyla Baker-Demaray is here to discuss the work she is doing to advocate for that community. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, Twyla, you work with an organization called the National Resource Center on Native American Aging.
Right.
What is it?
It's a large organization and it's a small organization. We work out of a few offices at the Center for Rural Health at the med school here at the UND. And we work with tribes throughout the United States. We work with Alaska Native villages and Hawaiian homesteads as well, which is kind of lesser known. There are relatives at the same time, but lesser known indigenous people.
And what about your role? What do you do in particular with this?
I'm the director of the Resource Center, and I've kind of worked my way up. I do health research, wellness research, and we do a number of things, working with, in particular, Native elders, but we kind of, it runs the gamut as far as the type of projects that we do.
And how did you get involved with this?
How did I get involved? Yeah. I actually started as a graduate research assistant over there, and I started doing research. I started doing work with the Center for Rural Health. I actually started, my very first job was working with Native veterans in the state of North Dakota. And that kind of segued into a position with the CRH, working for the NRCNAA, doing research with Native elderly populations.
Well, and you've been researching this for a while now. What is the main purpose of the NRCNAA? Our bread and butter project is our elder needs assessment, and that's where we work with communities, tribal organizations, urban and rural populations to get their needs assessments done, and that is essentially, it's a great big survey, a health and wellness survey for Native elders to help complete their Title VI requirements. So do people go into the communities or into the homes and actually do this assessment with the elders?
We actually work with the communities to train people who are from these local areas so that they have some data collection background and such to be able to go in and do their own data collection, because I myself would only be comfortable going back to like my home reservation to do that type of work. I'm from Fort Berthold. I'm enrolled in the 3 affiliated tribes of North Dakota.
Sure, so. And you talked earlier that you're not just with a specific tribe, but you're also working with Inuit people, also Hawaiian. Why was this all started? Why was there this need?
Well, there's Native elders are kind of one of the fastest growing populations in the nation. Elders in particular are growing pretty quickly, but minority populations are also rising very rapidly, and there's a need to provide services for them, to see where the gaps are, and to be able to address those needs, not just from like the federal government standpoint, but from, say, the state, and also from the tribes themselves.
Well, you said the gaps, so what are the things that are needed by the elders?
Well, there's high rates of chronic disease and illness and things like that in elderly populations, in Native populations. But there's also need for health providers, because a lot of these folks that I work with, they're rural, and they don't have access like, say, someone who's close to Grand Forks would. And
you've seen these issues firsthand.
Absolutely.
Is there a particular story that comes to mind that sticks with you?
Well, I'm thinking about my own hometown and about the time when we had very little access to a pharmacy. The local pharmacy, which was actually 13 miles from my hometown, closed down, and that meant that the folks who lived like in Newtown and in Parshall, where I'm from, had to make the 70-mile round trip to Newtown just to get their prescriptions filled, and that's if they had a vehicle to be able to do that. So.
Sure, and everyone knows that seniors need prescriptions a lot of times, so that can be very important.
Yeah.
Well,
Why is it important to have an organization that represents solely Native American elders?
Our needs are pretty unique, and there's a lot of cultural mores and things that people have to understand when they're going into these communities. I mean, we have a lot of similar needs as just a regular rural community. You'd want somebody who's local to be able to do the work for you, and also to recognize the autonomy of the tribes and their governments.
What are some of the programs that the organization funds or supports?
Well, we do the needs assessments, and that's a really large project, and that happens every 3 years. This last survey ended up with 18,000 Native American elders taking the survey, and that's a pretty good chunk of people. But we also use that data to help create programs like the Well Balanced program, which is the Wise Elders Living Longer exercise program for Native Americans. So.
Okay. Well, and we have the website address on the screen. What do you hope happens in the next 10 years for Native American elders?
I want to see us being able to take care of our own. So everybody's going to be an elder at some point if we're lucky enough to get there. So I'd like to see us set up the infrastructure and have the ability to take care of our own. Also, incidentally, we are starting our NIJI project, which is the National Indigenous Elder Justice Initiative, which is going to be housed at the CRH as well. And it's about elder abuse. So that's another project that's going to be rolling out.
Well, good luck on the next 10 years and beyond. It sounds like great work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.